Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and guys, can you believe this? A year ago yesterday, I walked out of my job as a health outcomes pharmacist at Walgreens. I have been so just overwhelmed with thinking about how I've made it a year. It feels like a lot longer than a year, to be honest. And I actually took some time to really process the year that I've had and what that means, what that looks like, how I've still gotten to utilize my degree as a pharmacist, my license as a pharmacist in Kentucky, to still advocate for the profession. And I am so glad that I have so much of this journey recorded through this podcast, because it's like a verbal diary, a vocal journal of this journey that I've been on for the last few years. And so it's funny because this past weekend, I was actually assisting a family friend through some medical emergent situations and realizing that you can take me out of a pharmacy, but I will always be a pharmacist. That's the coolest part to me, that no matter what direction I go into, as long as I keep my license up, I'm always going to somehow be a part of this profession, even if it just means someone coming up to me and saying, Candace, I need some advice on this medication that I was just prescribed. It's in me. I can't turn it off just because I do content creation now and am an influencer and public speaker, life coach. Nah, I'm always going to be a pharmacist, and that is so cool to me. Hey, Candace here. You might not know this, but I'm not only the host of this show. I am actually also a life coach. Okay, you might be thinking, seriously, Candace, who isn't a life coach these days, charging an arm and a leg for their services? I totally get it. I was right there with you before I had my own coach and started coaching myself. It almost made me sick to want to even call myself a life coach to begin with, until I realized that my specific style of coaching was actually quite different from the rest. When coaching with me, you don't feel like you're getting something that is copy-paste. You don't feel like you're not having a real conversation with a real human being. Every session is customized and tailor-made to the person that I'm talking with. We laugh, we cry, and we journey together every step of the way. But the most unique thing that I bring to the table is that I invite God into the space. That's right. I do faith-based life coaching for anyone of any age, in any tax bracket, and at any step in their spiritual walk with God. And even if you don't know God, but are curious about Him and why He'd be a crucial aspect for your breakthrough, I can coach you too. So, if you feel trapped living an unfulfilled life and are ready to shift your perception to break free of your shackled mindset, if you feel that now is the time to finally live the life you have always dreamt of living and are ready to do whatever it takes to make that your reality, if you are excited about the idea of living life as your whole self, free to step boldly into anything you were created to be, and if you are ready to embark on the journey to self-acceptance, complete fulfillment, joy, fearlessness, confidence, true love, and so much more, then head to www.candaceolushala.com to fill out the application form today for the possibility of us working together to reach your breakthrough to live your most fulfilled life for the rest of your life. So for today's topic, I actually wanted to share how I left pharmacy last year. This is not something I've really unpacked, but I'm ready to unpack it a little bit better for you guys. And maybe it will help you if you're trying to figure out making a shift that seems really dramatic compared to anything else you've done in life. Hopefully, my story helps you to know better what steps to take from this point forward. So, backstory, I graduated from the University of Kentucky College of Pharmacy in 2019. At the end of that year, I had actually finished going through a lot of health situations that really deteriorated my ability to practice healthfully by the time I graduated. So I took from graduation on as a means to recover while also studying for my pharmacy boards, as well as start my master's in public health online because I'm extra. So I graduated, got into my master's in public health program at George Washington University, at the George Washington University, and healed. I took every day as an opportunity to heal my body. My lab work by the end of 2019 showed that I was finally in normal ranges on every lab value. So I was ready to finish studying for my boards, passing the exam, getting licensed, and starting to work. I got licensed right before my birthday at the top of 2020 in February and started my first job as a pharmacist working as a health outcomes pharmacist for Walgreens in June of 2020. Let me tell you, I was so excited to start this job. I was not excited to apply for this job because I really did not want to go back into retail, and I was willing to do anything that was related to medication therapy management. Medication therapy management, let me break that down for you. That is an area of pharmacy that we place under ambulatory care oftentimes, where you may sit down with a patient with their medication list, go through every single medication, the name, the dose, the drug form, how often they're taking it, if and when they're taking it, if anything's changed, if anything's duplicated, if you have two drugs that do the same thing or are from the same drug class. You go through everything with them. And because of my public health background, I also liked to talk to patients about their nutrition, their overall lifestyle, their mental health, just holistically see the patient and their circumstances in relation to their medication list. So this job that I got was that side of Walgreens, and the program is amazing, what they had originally. Beautiful, beautiful program. I loved my boss. I loved my coworkers across the state. I was thriving and loving it. So I get into the role. I start my training, and I started to realize that things were going downhill very quickly. And about a month or two into the job, I realized this is going to crash and burn. This is not good. And I realized that my colleagues were noticing and saying the same thing. They were realizing the same issues that I was noticing. They were pointing out the same things I was nervous about. And it had nothing to do with the pandemic itself, but everything with how the company handled the management of that role. So they switched out our managers, gave us new managers without telling our managers really ahead of time. They were pretty much sprung up on this news of, by the way, you no longer are managing this program today, and we're going to find you something else to do. They're getting new managers. Those new managers not really listening to us. And so it created a lot of tension in the job and a lot of heaviness, truly, not just with me, but for everyone that I worked with. Months go by. I'm finishing out my master's in public health. And by the time I'm finished with my master's in public health, I had actually been making a game plan for that entire year on how I was going to get out, when I was going to get out, if I was going to switch to a new pharmacy job or not. I was just making plans to not be staying with Walgreens any longer. So I went through that process, finished out my master's, and realized that I had spent so much time in this role crying, just so frustrated to go into work, not wanting to wake up in the mornings. It had gotten so bad that I was almost inconsolable most of my days at work. What got me through my days at work were the moments where I realized that I was getting out and making the plans to get out and how I was going to get out and transition into something different, whether that was a new pharmacy job or something else. I didn't really know. Last August, I started to pray. I started to fast. I asked God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? What do you want from me? And what is the next step? What is this first paso? So my first paso was really, actually I had one, let me go back. My first paso was actually, if I'm being honest, was starting to make a plan. I started to make an exit plan. And let me tell you, I'm going to be very honest, the number of times I had to convince myself to not just up and leave, that was almost a daily occurrence for months, for almost a year. I got so frustrated where I would have to say, Candace, I know you want today to be the last day. I know you just want to walk out. I know you just want to quit. I know you just can't take this, but just tough it out until you graduate. And that's really planned. So that was my first paso, truly, was processing the situation and then trying to create a plan that was logical and made sense according to my finances and things like that. So that was my first paso. The next paso I did was pray. I prayed, I thought it out, I devised a 90-day plan, and then I took, if I had to separate this into two seasons, there was the season of being in the job and figuring out how to get out. So there was those two pasos there. But then I had to make a third paso, which was also the first paso in what I'm doing now, which was actually leave. And what did leaving look like for me? I had to put in my resignation letter. And then a week after I turned in my resignation letter, not even a week, less than a week, I think, I was asked to leave. And so I just went home and I sat in the discomfort of, for the first time in my life, not having a job that I had to clock in and out of, and not having education to be studying. I had no other degree I was trying to strive for. I had graduated in June, left my job in August, and now I'm home as an entrepreneur, figuring out what to do. And I launched my website on September 1st. When I launched my website, I thought, okay, this is it. This is the big push for what I'm doing, the big reveal that I had left. And I'm doing something totally new, totally different. People were super confused. You left pharmacy, you left this 5-6 figure job. How could you do that? What's going on? People were worried. People were excited. People were like, you're totally finally in your purpose. We can see it. Some people were like, girl, maybe you should just go back because the money is real over there. Mix of responses to what I was doing. But I knew that sitting in that discomfort was necessary. And it brought a lot of ups and downs. If you remember my episode about Into the Unknown, where I kind of talk about the question mark in front of me and how enticing it was to not need all the steps in front of me, but be drawn to the step that was in front of me, which was just start creating. That has pushed me through every up, every down, every moment of doubt, every moment of concern, every moment of fear, every moment of nervousness, all the emotions that come with making huge transitions. They didn't weigh me down. There were moments where I hesitated, like starting my YouTube channel, The Sweet Life, and having people pass through my life, come into my life to guide me, talk me into overcoming those hurdles emotionally and mentally to just go ahead and start, just do something. I share all of that because I know a lot of people wonder if I've gone through all this schooling, if I've gone through all this training, if I've gotten this degree and that degree, or did this trade school and did that trade school, or had this internship or that externship or whatever, how can I make that worthwhile and leave? Why would I leave? It's really a lot like how people get trapped in relationships that aren't working for them. And they think that the time that they invested equates to the level of, what's the word? Commitment? The level of commitment, the level of dedication even to this relationship. For every year that you're in it, you feel more obligated to stay. Even if you realize it's not working out, even if you realize you need to transition, even if it means you need to move on, the level of guilt a lot of us carry and saying, well, I'm just throwing all of that time away. I'm throwing all that effort away. If I've learned anything in year one of being in the unknown, I can reassure you that what you've learned, the time and effort that was poured into situations intentionally, those things don't just go away overnight. You don't have amnesia. Now, okay, there's definitely details of things that might be forgotten. I might not remember the Krebs cycle or whatever, but how to be a pharmacist, the skills that I acquired, how I learned how to interact with people, interview them. A lot of my interviewing skills I learned because of being a pharmacist and going through pharmacy school. We are literally taught how to appropriately interview people with open questions versus closed questions. It's a skill set that pharmacists are trained to know how to do. And I have all this medical knowledge and I have a public health perspective that I can always bring to the table. It hasn't left me. And those things don't have to leave you. You don't have to feel like, oh, I've never used this in my life. Yeah, you might not have used the details of that moving forward, but there are skills that you have acquired in every season of your life that if you took the time or have taken the time to learn and extrapolate those lessons and those skill sets, there's always a time where you're using those things. You may not realize that that's what you're doing, but you are. You have knowledge to impart on other people. Yeah, might be even biased, but still, you have a knowledge, you have an expertise, you have a means to share what you're learning. And that's exactly what this podcast is about. Because sometimes we simply need someone to help us take our first pasos. That takes extrapolating the good, the bad, and the ugly, what we learned from those things, and sharing that with other people. So hopefully they make better steps in front of them than we did. That the mistakes that we made, that's just learning opportunities for ourselves to grow and more opportunities to lean into our confidence, lean into our faith, lean into our daredevilness to push those boundaries and grow. You are so capable of stepping into unknown spaces. As scary as they might look, as unsure as you might even be. You don't have to know every single step in front of you, but there's a space where both peace and a little bit of anxious is not even the word that I'm looking for. It's more of like a anticipation where peace and anticipation can coincide. You can allow those paradoxically sit together and step forward. Move forward. In Spanish, we would say, sigue adelante, nunca por atrás. Move forward, not backward. It's freeing to realize that a year in, I'm looking and I'm seeing that now, as of today, if we got it all edited right and good to go, today should be the launch of my second podcast, the hashtag Pizza is Not Working podcast, which is a pharmacy advocacy podcast. So I'm still getting to use my knowledge, but now from the advocacy side, a side that I was doing on the inside, working for Walgreens and wanting to see change occur for the better. And because that wasn't well received on the inside, I now had the freedom to continue using my voice to help those who are still working in the profession, those who are still affected by the profession, whether they're patients or they have loved ones who are patients, and just our healthcare system as a whole and our nation as a whole in a public health manner. I get to still be a voice in that space. So no, my not working behind the counter doesn't have any effect on me being a pharmacist. I love being a pharmacist. I just don't love the practice of it anymore. I love that profession, but it's not what I'm called to do anymore. I'm called to pour into it, but not to practice it. And now I have creative ways, creative outlets to really show the various facets of who I am. And I get to continue to navigate this space every day. It's always something new. It's always something different. And some days I don't know what to do that day. And some days I'm totally sure what I'm going to do that day. I love every part of that. I enjoy every bit of this. I don't put pressure on myself to have to figure it out like everyone else is. I no longer put the pressure on myself to look like every other life coach out there, podcaster out there, YouTuber out there. I don't want to be a copy paste. I want to be me. And I want you to be you. We should all want that for ourselves. And that's what this podcast is about. I don't want you to just take first steps, but I want you to tailor the steps that we teach here, that other people get to share here, and put it into your unique situation, into who you uniquely are as a human being. You don't have to do exactly what we do, and you don't have to have the exact same outcome. You are absolutely able to be creative in taking your first paso, even if you learned how to take that paso from someone else. It's always going to look uniquely different to you, as it should. So with that, I want you to repeat after me, especially if you're in a space where you're trying to figure out what next. I feel called to do something, and I just want to make sure that I'm taking a really quality step. Repeat these words after me. Self, I'm not sure 100% what's in front of me, but I am sure of what's behind me and where I stand today. What I do know because of those things is that it's time to take a step. It's time to take a first paso. Self, you've got this. Self, don't worry. Self, get creative. Self, you can do this. One step at a time. One paso at a time. If you repeated those words after me, I'm really proud of you. You are creating waves. You are breaking barriers, not just in the world around you, but really within yourself. Breaking those barriers of doubt, those spaces within you that whisper that you can't do it, or that you think you have to have some famous person with a blue check mark or with thousands of followers before you can make this great move. You might think you need to have the sign off from someone specific in your life before you could ever make such a move like that. And guidance is important. Mentorship is important. People to help you navigate the world are really important. There's also spaces in life where people are not going to understand at all. But you get to stretch, you get to grow, you get to live free, heal, process, plan, navigate, make mistakes, learn, grow, and make more pasos. You've got this. That's it for today's episode. If you have any questions, if you want to know more of what I'm doing, you can always go to my website at www.firstpaso.com, or also reach out to me on social media at Candace Olushala. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to be a guest on this show, apply on my website under the podcast tab. And if you're looking for a life coach to walk through life with you and help you navigate your pasos, reach out to me on my website as well. Otherwise, take care. God bless. Stay safe. Love you guys. And I'll talk to you soon. Besitos. Bye.